Man United have been humbled in the Manchester derby, losing 3-1 thanks to some fantastic performances by the likes of Foden, Rodri, Stones and more. In this video, what I want to do with the help of stills from the game, data, as well as my tactical board, is analyse what were the main battlegrounds in the game, where was it won and lost, what was the difference between the first half and the second half, what were the tactical tweaks that Pep made to win City the game. Ultimately, let's start with the lineups. It's not an exaggeration to say that United set up as a relegation team, a team who all they were concerned about was trying to not concede and maybe get a couple of counter-attacking opportunities throughout the game. United had 3 shots on target in the game, one of which coming in the 93rd minute. Outside of a couple of counter-attacks, they offered literally nothing offensively. Fantastic wonder goal, but in terms of a tactical strategy, they had none from an offensive standpoint. City, on the other hand, the only question mark was whether Doku would start or not. Ultimately, he did. I thought that was a little bit unusual because Dallow's been United's best player this season, in my opinion. But that was one of the main battlegrounds of the game. Doku on that left-hand side and also Foden on that right-hand side. Why were those the two main battlegrounds? Well, when a team sets up as defensively compact and narrow as Manchester United, there is no space in the centre of the pitch, basically. So you've got to go wide if you want to have any joy. That's also illustrated in the passing networks. Look at how deep United are compared to Manchester City. It's quite comical. This was a Manchester derby, allegedly. Very different in terms of how City attacks down the left compared to the right, though. With Doku, it was all about trying to create either 1v1s with Dalot, or dragging Garnacho over and creating space and trying to formulate chances through link-up rather than direct crossing. Sadly for Doku, his end product wasn't quite there when it came to the crossing and the shooting. It was very good in terms of the link-up, though, as we'll get into. Happened throughout the game. Here's one example where Walker wants to switch it over to Doku. What's happened is there's been an overload on that right-hand side. Doku now has some space to attack Dalot. This is one of the examples where he does really well. He lures in Garnacho because United are smart enough to know that you can't really leave Doku 1v1 against someone else. Doku, an intelligent ball into Bernardo Silva through Dalot and Garnacho, leads to a potential goal-scoring opportunity if Bernardo could just get the pass right. Here is another example of some lovely link-up play. Comes back to Doku, and this is where the end product was lacking. The shot just goes wide and over. Stones this time seeks the run of Doku. Doku wants to stand up Dalot. He cuts inside. Once again, that end product isn't quite there in respect of his shooting, but the link-up play was actually really nice. This is what should have been the equaliser. Once again, Doku is standing up Dalot. Garnacho knows that he's got to come and assist his fullback partner. Fernandes doesn't really track the run of Rodri, so it leaves so much space here for Rodri to run into when Garnacho vacates it to go and help Dalot. There's the ball. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all created by Doku, by the way, Rodri's got a situation where he can ping one of those diagonals into the run of Foden. Normally it's Walker who makes that run. This time it's Foden. This is a really nice attacking pattern we've seen from City this season. Foden heads it across and obviously Haaland must score, yet he doesn't. So that was the left-hand side battleground. On the right-hand side, very different in respect of what Foden was being asked to do. Lindelof is a very immobile centre-back. So popping him in at left-back meant that Foden was going to get a lot of joy. I don't think we necessarily utilised him to his full effect in that first half. He seemed to be more of a utility player, a facilitator, rather than the game breaker he was in the second half. For me, that was the main difference between the first and second half. So Foden would either do little triangles with De Bruyne and Stones, who obviously pushed up into that double pivot with Rodri, or he would try to cut inside and cross to seek Doku on the back post, or he would try to take on Lindelof round to the byline and try to get a cross off with his weaker right foot. Here's one of those examples where he's trying to find either Haaland or Doku, but look at how many bodies are in the box. It's only 2. United have got so many red shirts back, they can clear it really, really easily. Another method that Foden tried to use to unlock United was to play these balls with De Bruyne making those late runs. Once again, cross ineffective given how many red shirts are there relative to blue shirts. Another way that Foden created chances in that first half, dragging others to him, allows Rodri to play a first-time ball through there, which leads to De Bruyne getting a shot off. You maybe expect him to do better from those situations. But this was one of the main problems with Foden in that first half, was that he was getting into these areas, but As we all know, Foden isn't an out-and-out wide player. So despite the fact that he gets the better of Garnacho here, gets to a decent-ish position in terms of crossing on his weak foot, it's largely ineffective. Once again, not enough blue shirts in the box compared to red. Onana's able to claim it really easily. We were actually trailing in the first half, despite, in my opinion, us being better in the first half. In terms of chance creation, Haaland should have scored that tap-in. Foden should have done better when he was 1v1 with Onana. We limited United to basically nothing outside a couple of counter-attacks of our own making at times, and that Rashford goal is just a world-class finish. I don't want to overanalyze it too much, but the reality is we scored 3 goals in the second half despite us being less threatening according to the data. So what were the differences in that second half compared to the first from a City perspective? Well, the answer is Phil Foden, to be honest, and that's why the title of this video is what it is. He was our best player in respect of carrying the ball, progressing the ball via the carry, and also our best forward player in respect of progressing it via the pass. Incredibly impressive given how high up the pitch he started. And this was also a byproduct of United's own making. Because United was so deep and so compact and so reluctant to come out and actually try to play out of our press with any real level of talent or ability, they were basically playing, I don't even know what you describe as the formation. Technically, Fernandes and McTominay were the strikers without the ball, pressing, but even they were absolutely behind the ball to a ridiculous degree. I thought I was watching Sheffield United at times, to be honest with you. No disrespect to Sheffield United there. But because United were no threats, it basically meant that Pep could go, well, if they're going to be zero threat, I might as well just push everyone up, or even more players up. And that's a two-pronged thing, because not only does it mean we've got more bodies in advanced areas, we're more likely to score, it also pins the opposition back. So Walker would often find himself in around these areas. Stones would essentially become an 8. He was floating in and around these sort of areas here. And instead of being in more of like a reserved, deeper position alongside Rodri, Stones was clearly much more advanced, and that helped create central overloads, which helped create space for other Manchester City players. And that will happen if you show City too much respect. We will just advance all our players up the pitch, and eventually we will break you down like that. Here's one example where Walker is pushing up to give Foden a bit more space. This is the equaliser. It all comes from John Stones' advanced position and a subsequent Rodri run. It also comes from the fact that there's no left winger defending or assisting Lindelof, in this area. There's no one there. There should be a player there. If only Rashford wasn't at the other end of the pitch still complaining about Walker touching his bicep, maybe they wouldn't have conceded this goal. As it was, he was, so City did indeed score. Stones, advanced area, again, dragging United players. Rodri with this incredibly intelligent run to take that United player out of the game, so leaves Foden in a 1v1 against an immobile centre-back at left-back. All he wants to do is cut in on that weak foot. We know how good Foden is as a ball striker, and that's exactly what he does. Lindelof is never going to be able to deal with him given his limited skill sets. Another change by Pep was to take off Doku, who didn't do too much in that second half, to be fair, and bring on Alvarez. So what happened was Bernardo went to left wing, and Alvarez into the midfield. And as I touched on before, with City pushing even more bodies up, that suffocated Man United, and it meant that they were just not able to get out, even more so than previously. So here, Foden to Stones doesn't quite reach it. United turn over possession, but immediately 3 blue shirts surround Bruno Fernandes. He panics, he rushes, he gets the pass wrong, Walker steps up and intercepts. It leads to a situation where City just camped and parked on the edge of United's box. It's only a matter of time at this point that City gets a winner, surely. Also, with pushing however many players up, look at how many City bodies are in the box now. In that example, in the first half, there are only a couple now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means Foden's crosses were much more effective. Bernardo should do better with that header because Haaland would have had a tap-in had he got it right. Ten Hag responded. Johnny Evans went off, I think due to an injury. Academy player Guardiola came on. So what happened was Evans came off, Lindelof went to centre-back, and Guardiola actually went all the way to right-back because I think Ten Hag, in addition to it being an injury, realised that Foden was causing a lot of issues down this right-hand side. Obviously the goal, but other things as well. So Dalot picked up Foden. So Pep responded, and Pep went, well, if you're going to do that, then I'll just swap round Foden and Bernardo Silva. And actually, to compound that, since you brought on this inexperienced academy player, I'm just going to throw on Kevin De Bruyne as well, on that, more so on that left-hand side. Sometimes it was De Bruyne on the left, sometimes it was Foden on the left. They interchanged a lot in a similar way to how they did against Newcastle, the difference being that was on the right, this was on the left. And when your best players interchange and are fluid like that, and indeed our forward line was much more fluid in the second half, it's incredibly difficult to defend against. It's almost impossible if City are in the right mood. This is how the second goal was scored. Kevin De Bruyne technically at the left wing here. Foden in his best position now in that left central midfield spot. Picks the ball up. He's just not really dealt with properly by Casemiro here. And Julian Alvarez, who came on not in a deep midfield position, in his best position as the second striker, basically in line with Erling Haaland. And when he's in those positions, he doesn't have to think as much in respect of his actions, and he's closer to goal. He is a much better player, being utilised perfectly in this game, in my opinion. Plays it into Foden, and it's a trademark carry, strive, finish by Phil Foden to give City a deserved lead. This is another example of that interchanging play between Foden and De Bruyne working really well. This time De Bruyne picks it up deep. Deft little flick by Foden, who's occupied the left wing position now. De Bruyne runs onto it, eventually leads to this situation. Maybe De Bruyne could play a pass into Bernardo or a reverse one through to Alvarez or Haaland. As it was, he ends up going for the goal. But again, that came about due to Pep's decision to pop Foden and De Bruyne at left wing and left central midfield and allow them to rotate. Phil Foden was the best player on the pitch. Again, this time starting from the right wing, getting a brace, being involved on the right, on the left, in central midfield in terms of attacking, but also tracking back and defending. This has been the Phil Foden season. We have seen him blossom from a boy into a man. He is now one of the first names on the team sheet. It does not matter where he plays, even if played out of position like today at right wing, he's still capable of putting in ridiculous performances for Man City. And that's why, in my opinion, he's been City's best player. And there is a genuine argument that come the end of the season, depending on what happens from now until the end of the season, we could be looking at potentially the Premier League player of the season. That's how Man City beat Manchester United in the derby comfortably in the end. United setting up incredibly passive in terms of their press, not really wanting to engage with City, allowing City to come onto them and allowing for those tactical tweaks in the second half. Stones advancing more, Walker advancing more, Foden being allowed to be more fluid with Walker pushing up. And that really is an issue of United's own making. That is what happens if you are so passive and you allow City to come onto you like that. That's the video, really. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on the video. If you want to go the extra mile and get your name in the credits like these lovely people, do consider becoming a YouTube member. The link will be in the video description. Thank you so much, guys. I'll catch you next time.